welcome to the, let's see, what is it called? Free Will, Science and Religion podcast. Yes. So for this next half hour, I think I'll go over some YouTube video content and, sort of make the counter argument, I suppose, or the bigger picture argument relevant to the idea of what does control the human mind, the human brain. Stuff in your head. How is it running? Yeah, so let's go over some of that. So there's this character on YouTube called Pyro314. Pyro. Same difference. Anyway. He sort of, he concedes in a Nietzsche-esque fashion that there is no free. The concept of free is broken. But this idea of will is still something to play with. That we have this will to power. Yeah, right. Or this power will. And so now instead of comparing how free your will is, he's going to argue how strong your will is. And what are we really talking about when we're talking about a will? Will is just a desire, right? It's just a, what's the word I like to use? Devotion, that's it. It's a sense of devotion to something. So it's really all you're doing is measuring how devoted you are. So I could argue that I have a choice about some dilemma, some circumstance I'm in. And the choice is between the A choice, which I know is better for the world, and the B choice is better for me. And really it just depends on how devoted I am to this concept of doing the right thing instead of the self-interested thing. Now, if I'm devoted to the concept that you do the right thing because it just makes sense, you maximize the value of the candy bar by giving it to the person who needs it the most, kind of thing. Now, if I'm devoted to that logical truth, then I'll do the right thing. If I'm not so devoted, then I'll accept a rationalization, an excuse to be selfish. So that's really the strength. The strength of will is really the strength of your ideas, the strength of your principles. Having a principle in your head that says some truth to you, like no matter how great you think you are personally, you live in a world of 7 billion people, and realistically, you might be in the top 100. Yeah, but you're not the greatest human on earth. Probably not anyway. Right? Statistically, it sort of makes sense. Even though you think you're worth it, you're probably not worth it. So that's kind of a principle, a thought, an idea. And now all we're going to do when we say, what's your will, we're going to say, how strong is that idea? Is it strong enough to overcome your personal selfish desire, or is it not? Period. Yeah, pretty much. And it comes to this with all this stuff that is will related. Like quitting smoking, for example, something I was never able to do. Yes, I didn't have the willpower, which really meant I could never give a shit enough to quit. Yeah, there wasn't enough on the line. I mean, maybe if the rule was, if the bargain was, quit smoking and you get the Swedish bikini team, for a year, or even 10 years. Get a 10-year contract. Okay, I probably could muster the will then. I'm pretty sure I would. I'm pretty sure. But it would just be a selfish thing, right? So I would just be doing some self-interested thing because I was given enough of a prize to make it worth doing. But isn't that all will really ends up being? It's just some trade-off between the things you're devoted to, the things you want, your desires. You're just trading in one desire, which is, I want to be a good person, for another desire, which is, I want to get me some. And that's all that's going on. So anyway, these characters, these whatever you call them these talkers, these people who just talk stuff, say stuff. Yeah, that's all it is, right? They quote the Nietzsche now and then and think they know something about something. And, yeah, they ain't getting the real story. So anyway, we'll play some of this. Yeah, but anyway, there's no, you're not going to, you can sit there and say to yourself, I'm going to make my will stronger. Well, then all you're really saying is I'm going to make my devotion stronger. My devotion isn't good enough. I'll guilt myself into making it better. But that's really all you're going to do. You're just going to oblige yourself to be better so you can call yourself a good person honestly when you look at yourself in the mirror. You just want a better picture to look at when you look in the mirror. Right? Right. So, no point in having a competition about it. There's no point in going around saying, I got strong will and they got weak will. But there's also no point in not acknowledging when people suck and saying, that guy's an asshole. There's nothing wrong with saying that, because their programming sucks. Their principles, their devotion to the truth is inadequate, insufficient, it's weak and feeble. And there's no real excuse for it other than their devotion to their rationalizations and their convenience is much stronger. So it's like they want the alcohol, they want to be a drunk, so they go reaching for an excuse to be a drunk. Right? Right. Anyway, speaking of drunks.
We're talking about it. And whatever you say, whether will is an illusion or not, there is a phenomena there. And if you want to look at it...
Well, again, so you say there is a phenomenon there, like we're supposed to think it's worthy of the word phenomenon. Yeah, the fact that the fundamental function of our brain is to compare positives and negatives, to do risk assessment constantly throughout our day-to-day life, to just constantly measure the value or necessity of doing something that we may not want to do, may not get anything out of it personally in the short run versus some long run. But it's just measuring those interests, short run versus long run. My interest versus their interests. You know, that's all that's happening though. And it doesn't really deserve, I don't think, the word phenomenon. You could say it, but I just don't think it deserves it.
Physical phenomena. Then you're going to talk about this relativity of wills. And what does it mean to have a strong versus a weak will? Again.
Like I said, I wouldn't even bother with that nonsense, because obviously each individual is balancing a different tangible connection to these words, to the very concept of the experience. So quite obviously, if let's say you had been on a boat 3 times, and that each time the boat sank. Now your personal experience, and people died, let's say, drowned, glub, 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 horrible, horrible. So all 3 times this is what happened. So now you have a personal understanding of boats that's just going to make it really hard for you to go, like, unless there's a really, really good reason for you to get on a boat, you might just say, I ain't going nowhere near those things. Just a waste of my time, waste of risk. So unless there's a real good cause, yeah, I ain't doing it. And where somebody else who doesn't have that personal experience isn't going to have a strong enough connection to it. So you can't say, oh, one has less will, or they have a weak will because they can't overcome their fear. Well, they have a different thing they're fearing. They have a different thing they're avoiding. So you can't really compare them. So this whole idea that you're going to compare your strong will and say, I'm strong-willed, compared to what? Compared to whose life you haven't lived. Yeah.
Whether the options that seem like choices are really choices or not. Now, this idea of just, I've looked at the universe.
Well, it sort of does matter whether they're choices or not. See, so that's sort of the catch, right? And they're really not, as like I said, if you think about this whole cause and effect, and you think about the implications of it, all our brain is doing is providing the opportunity, okay, for the evolution of behavior to happen through us. So we're just another design, and another holder, a possessor, of a style of life, and there is this, capacity for us to convey it to each other, to say something very well. I mean, Nietzsche says will to power. Somehow those words mean something to people, and they make little clicky noises inside their heads, and that changes their brains. But that's what we can do to each other. So we can screw with each other's perception and devotions and understandings and connections. we can give them an image of boats sinking and stuff, and give them a better understanding of why somebody might be afraid. Anyway, but to compare will is just no point. You know, when you can't compare what the individual is actually comparing as a formula, as a life experience, as a knowledge base. And the truth is their knowledge base is fixed. Our brain just processes a circumstance based on the blades of our blender, you know, and you can't put new blades on. You can't change it. The relationship between your knowledge and the way your brain is going to work, it's going to come up with the same answer every time given the same circumstances. So to talk about there being any kind of power will that takes control is just nonsense. You either are disposed to make the decision or not disposed. Period.
So I figured out there's no room for free will. Well, I've looked at your conception of the universe and figured out that you don't have room in it for the concept of free will. You know.
I don't know. I guess that was some sort of tricky reversal, but I didn't get it. So I'm not going to give any points for it because I didn't get it.
Well, but what's the alternative? Destiny.
Really, if that's the way you want to put it, but yes, inevitable outcome. That's right. We're just reading a script. All right, you're a witness to your life. You don't make your life. You sit here as a conscious entity and you watch your reflexive ideas and themes and devotions play out your life. Act it out, move it out, say it out. Every word that comes out of my mouth, I didn't make this stuff up. I didn't do this. This stuff is coming out of my mouth and I'm saying, holy shit, there's stuff coming out of my mouth. I'm witnessing me. I'm not making me.
It was destiny. Becky, John, what a lovely wedding. It was destiny.
Yeah, anyway, nobody's making this. So see, he's making a counter argument to somebody as if they're making this argument like there's any of this destiny stuff in any positive way. No, it's just a fact, though. All right, that you're not going to change the outcome of existence with any magic power. You're either going to have the thought, you're either going to have learned it, you're either going to have had the ingredients inside of you already, the character ingredients, to make something happen in a certain way, or you don't. You either have learned how to play the piano, or you have not learned how to play the piano, but you are not going to make up nothing out of something out of nothing. You're going to have the ingredients, and the ingredients, mixing them is the only thing you can do. Now maybe you can make something spectacular out of shitty ingredients now and then, but we all know that most of the time it's going to take some work to make something good, okay, out of human conduct. And you're going to have to do some work and some practice to become skilled and able, and you're just not going to be able to do it without doing the work that it takes to become it. So to become ready to make right decisions or ready to make right moves, the moves of, say, a pole vaulter aren't very complicated. You know, it's 12 seconds worth of stuff, right? There are not that many moves involved, but it takes years to be able to get your reflexes just right, to do all that stuff just right, so you go over the bar just right. So you got to have the ingredients or you got nothing. And the same is true for ideas and devotions and loves and power and whatever will you have. It ain't going to just happen in a sense of it will just happen, but it isn't going to, it's going to follow the course you set for it, in the sense that if you've become a selfish, focused individual, somebody who negates obligations, well, your likelihood is that you're not going to become, you know, a splendid asset to the people around you.
Oh, now your child has died. It was destiny. It's kind of like the will of nature.
Well, whatever. It's not a will of anything. It's not destiny in any, like somebody planned it. But it's just a fact that cause and effect, that's what happened. And there's going to be shit that's going to happen tomorrow. And it's quite predictable today with enough information. it's on its way. The train is ready to wreck. And it's just having this little bit of stupid knowledge about the little crooked rail somewhere, or the woodpecker ate some bugs in the, or whatever the hell happened. And just having that knowledge, and and you can prevent it, but you don't have the knowledge, so you can't prevent it, so cause and effect, it's going to happen, and that's just the way it is. And the same thing with your brain. You can't know ahead of time that, oh, it's really a bad idea to, people text on their phone and kill their kids. Yeah, well, it'd be really good if you could show them ahead of time that that's what's going to happen. You'd think they'd be smart enough to know. They could run that film in their heads and know, but they don't. Their devotion isn't strong enough. Their devotion to safety isn't strong enough. Their devotion to their own comfort and convenience is too strong. Period.
Everything's meant to happen. For no...
Everything will happen, and you're just going to read a script, and that's the way it is. And the only good news is the scripts get better as the wheel of time keeps running. Okay, there's more information available, more capacity not to be owned by nonsense and bullshit. So, yeah, that's the advantage, is that the pool of intelligence is getting deeper, but unfortunately the people drinking from it aren't too great.
Reason, because we're modern. At least in the old days when they believed that bullshit, they thought, for a reason. And you're all like, but for no reason. That's why life sucks.
Yeah, I guess he doesn't make any sense to you either. Yeah, I mean, this is, this is an argument somehow, right? So I guess he's tending to mock the idea that if you think you can't escape, that you're, silly, because modern quantum physics gives you an escape hatch of some kind. Like you'll just invent the solution to disaster that you don't know about that's coming tomorrow. Right? Somehow you just find the super knowledge. You become one of the super friends like him.
No, look, my challenge to all of you anti-free will people is, upgrade your lingo.
We're not the one that needs the upgrade in lingo. Once again, there's a whole bunch of people who think, who think their brain is really doing something besides mechanically behaving like a robot. They don't think they're a robot. They don't think they're programmed. They don't think they're controlled by the circumstance of their birth. They don't think they're believers in Mohammed because their parents were. They're not smart enough to get that.
Just state-of-the-art 19th century discourse, Nietzsche. And let's talk about...
Yeah, and so what's there to see in Nietzsche? His grand answer to all problems was be an insect, be a bug, be the master bug. If you can grow a knife on the top of your head to go stab the other things in the neck and suck their blood, then yeah, become that. If that's the game, be the best at that cruddy game. Be a selfish asshole and win. Yeah, that was brilliant. What enlightenment.
About willpower. You're going to deny that some people seem to have a weaker will or a stronger will? Are you going to...
Yeah, I'm going to deny exactly. It's just as silly as you comparing intelligence or comparing, even whether somebody's fat or thin, like it's their fault. There's just no fucking point in getting into that idiotic comparison. To sit there and say somebody has a weak will because they haven't had enough personal experience to know to be afraid, and therefore weren't afraid, and therefore were reckless. It just doesn't make any sense. I mean, obviously your will is going to be strong depending on your circumstances. I mean, for some people, maybe quitting smoking was easy because they saw somebody they really cared about die, too early or too badly, and that was good reason for them to do something about their own behavior. It gave them the will to do something about it because it gave them an idea that was strong enough, a strong idea. But they had to get the idea. You're not going to change the balance. You either got to change the balance of the self-interest by making it not addictive, right? It's easy not to be addicted to something if I'm not addicted to it. You know, it's a little different when I'm addicted. Duh.
Deny that part of the phenomena? Because I doubt it. Generally, no. You're going to understand that.
No, I'm not. Like I said, I'm not going to understand any use in comparing yourself to somebody else and saying you have a stronger will than them. Because you do certain behaviors, because they're easier for you. I mean, that's all it can come down to. Because you're jumping over a much slower hurdle. There's just no point in saying you're somehow, I got a stronger will because I got longer legs. Well, that's just nonsense. You're just doing this. You're just making the same very mistake that the believers in the free will are making, in the sense that you're assigning accountability, a responsibility, when all you should be doing, in the sense, is applying the simple statement that you're either a productive human being or a destructive human being. You're either efficient or inefficient. Who cares why you are? I mean, why you suck doesn't matter. It just matters that you suck. I don't need to blame you. I don't need you to feel humiliated or degraded or insulted. I need you not to suck.
And as far as the total unfreedom of the will that you have deduced with your logical analysis, I don't think you understand the laws of nature enough. You're just not willing.
Yeah, so the laws of nature. So he's implying. So he sits there and admits there's no free will, and then he starts to rationalize the existence of a free will by saying quantum mechanics. You don't understand that physics creates a little magical universe for us to invent superpowers. Yeah, no, it doesn't. You're just playing with yourself, buddy. Mental masturbation.
To accept the fact that if there is such a thing as willpower, that it arises from nature. It's not a magic.
Yes, well, again, it arises from it, as if what power are you talking about? The power to overcome your selfish convenientism and rationalizations for your own ego benefit? It seems to me you don't have too much of that power. So what willpower are you talking about? The willpower to overcome what you know is the right thing to do, or the responsible thing to do, or the sensible thing to do, and you couldn't overcome that? You couldn't even overcome in this video the uselessness of mockery and, you know, pomposity and arrogance. You couldn't even overcome that in this very video, right? Now we're all guilty of it. I'll say I'll as guilty as anybody of taking a cheap shot when somebody sticks their ass out and you say, okay, I'm going to kick it, sure. But I don't sit there and applaud myself and say I have a super strong will. I don't say, oh, I strong-willed myself into that rotten behavior, because I didn't. It's just the way, yes, the balance of conduct is going to be this relationship between a monkey and Mr. Spock. I mean, that's who that's the range you can be. You can be anywhere from Mr. Spock to a monkey, and anywhere in there on any particular day you can fall anywhere in between those two extremes, based on the balance of your devotions, the devotion to your own self-interest, or your devotion to being the best person you can be.
Thing. It doesn't require ghosts. It doesn't require magical other realms and platonic realities. If it's happening, it's happening here. And my take is this. It's like...
Yeah, I know, but we already heard your take. Your take was to mock something like determinism, which is just a fact. I mean, you know, no one likes it that way. It wasn't meant to be, but it's just the fact is you're not gonna escape the fact that the material universe is deterministic, even the quantum part.
We're a bunch of salts and some water, and we're walking around going to fucking Avatar.
Yeah, whatever. So, you know, you've had 4 billion years to evolve into something better than just a bag of salts. 4 billion years. I mean, it was 4 billion years ago there was bags of salt. Okay? The last 500 million years, okay, is the challenge is why don't you do something, you know, why don't you behave a little better than a fish?
That's already pretty surprising and outstanding for basic.
It's not very outstanding, no. For you to act like a Nietzsche moron, to make rationalizations and excuses for being pretty much a bug and doing what you feel like, okay, that's not really very amazing. It kind of insults the fact that you have 100 billion neurons, because obviously you might as well be a bug. You might as well just get by on 32, on say 300,000 neurons, like a fruit fly. If you're not going to behave any better than a fruit fly, then why have the extra neurons? Why waste the electricity? Why waste the energy, the 100 watts of power, on a will that doesn't want to will any better than a fruit fly?
A rock, a slush, a slushy mineral mixture to be walking around. So what you...
Yeah, again, 500 million years of Frankenstein experiments going on to build you, and you have this low an expectation. Well, I'm behaving pretty good for a slushy rock. Yeah, no, I think you pretty much suck.
See is what you get. The freedom of the will, really the phenomena of will, and the relative
yeah, the freedom of the will and the phenomenon of will. Again, so just contradict your own statement, okay? We've taken free off the table. The idea of calling will a phenomenon when will isn't really will. I mean, will is just the byproduct of a conflict between your own self-interest and some other interest. There can be 3 or 4 interests compelling you. There can be her, him, them, and me. And they all have an interest in the decision I'm going to make. And what's going to decide the will is going to be what I decide to do. And all it's going to matter is how devoted I am to some principle or some idea. And what it's really going to matter is whether the idea is I'm going to do the best I can to answer the question, okay, for all of the people involved, or I'm going to find some cheap, stupid Nietzsche rationalization to be a selfish cunt. Excuse my French. I know that wasn't French, but, it's sort of French. Sort of.
Of willpower, it achieves what you see. This is it. This is what we get from it. You don't get to fly and stuff. Because there's no free will where it's infinitely more, it's powerful, there is no weakness, it's all strongness.
Yeah, exactly. So there's no point in this bibble-babble. There's no point in talking about your will. The only thing there's a point in talking about is your psychology. And is it dominated by strong devotion to principles of fairness and equity, justice, the idea that you do live in a world and that the future is much bigger than the present? And if somebody has to be, that if you have to make a small sacrifice today for a huge gain tomorrow, that you have a logical obligation to be obedient to those facts? Yeah. A devotion to logic and the truth and efficiency and being good. Defining good and then acting good. Yeah, is your will devoted to that? Or is your will devoted to, let me think if there's any kind of weaselly way I can come out of this without doing a damn thing and getting all the credit for it? So it sounds like you're one of the others.
Now that doesn't happen. Okay, so you get limitations in reality, and this is it. A slush, a bunch of minerals can decide to go there instead of there. That's... If you think that's magical...
Yeah, that doesn't make much sense, right? Okay, yeah, that's right. We have a brain, and we're talking about brains that produce behavior, and our brains produce behavior by creating the illusion of consciousness. So that gives us this fake sense that we're going to do something. All right, what we're really going to do is just watch our brain think about it for a specific amount of time, and then make a decision, and then act. And it's all going to do it whether we like it or not. We're going to just watch ourselves do it. Again, I'm not writing any of this shit I'm saying. It's just coming out of my mouth. I don't have anything to do with it. It's all subconsciously made based on the disposition of my previous conversation and on the orientation and the devotions and the senses that my brain has attached itself to as themes. It's got a template, okay, for this is what a sentence sounds like, and this is what an idea does, and this is how you kind of try to put ideas into sentences. And so go ahead, do it, and it does it. But that's it. I didn't do it. You know, I don't have anything to do with it. It's a mechanical process, and yeah, there's nothing. I'm not doing it. I don't have anything to do with it. No freedom, and you might as well throw the will part out too, because whatever decision I make, it's going to surprise me too. So anyway, all out of time. So till the next time, and such. No free will. Don't believe it. It's nonsense.